Hello and welcome to my blog about my video consultation to most of the countries of the world, especially the secular countries of the world, the countries which claim to give rights and freedoms to people for practicing their religion and practicing their faith, to the United Nations, which is concerned about the impact of uh, you know human growth or aspirations upon the environment, and also in presenting you guys a possible solution for multiple issues that are being faced by many countries and economies. So what I'm talking about here is basically a way of reducing uh, the pollution. Is another thing that I'm talking about here, is how we can improve the small and medium economy, or the small and medium enterprises. I'm also talking here about how to prevent a certain amount of radicalization, and I'm also talking here about how we can better utilize public resources such as security personnel, public transport, and then obviously generate more revenue out of public transport as well, and reduce congestion on the streets a little bit, uh, hopefully enough to be able to make a change to the environment, and also kind of bring up the happiness index of the citizens of a country. And all of this is possible to be done by simply understanding that we now need to get over the idea of a static weekend, and we need to move into the idea of a dynamic weekend. And what this is going to do is it's going to create more foot traffic into markets. It's going to give markets more so-called weekend shopping days by the citizens of a city or the country. And this is all done by understanding that we are kind of not attending to secular law by not allowing people to take holidays for their day, their particular day of religious worship. And if we are not going to allow people uh, holidays for their days of religious practice, then essentially A, we are not being secular, B, we are violating, I guess, the constitution, uh, and C, what we are also doing is uh, we are opening up these societies uh, to steer away from the core values of their religions, and thus make them available to elements of radicalization. And not only that, uh, for certain people who are very dedicated towards performing their religious duties or their religious practices or their prayer, uh, a certain ill will gets created within society when these people attend to their matter in maybe public parks or something like that, because people start feeling that pretty soon there'll be a religious construction that will come up and take over the park. So the idea is fairly simple, and I think I don't need to explain too much about it. What I'm essentially saying is that instead of having a weekend where people are forced to take a holiday on a Saturday and a Sunday, people should be allowed to take a holiday on either a Sunday or a Saturday, and then take the second day of the week for the day of their religious practice. So, assuming, I mean, the best example probably in this case I could give is Muslims who have a 5-day prayer ritual to perform, uh, and for them to go to work on a Friday must be quite difficult, because they have to do their prayers 5 times during the day, and I'm sure out of which 2 or 3 times would end up having to be at the office. So if Muslims would be able to take a holiday on Friday, not only will they be able to practice their religion freely, but at the same time Indian secular law, or rather Indian religious law, demands that people meet periodically at a particular place, but then it has to also back that up with the holiday that makes it practical for them to do that. So that's the first part of it. But the other part of it is that for a Muslim who's allowed to take a holiday on a Friday, not only will he be able to perform his religious practices, but then he'll be able to take his child to the mosque and make him meet elders who are probably a lot more aware about the religion than someone talking on the internet about it, or trying to have a sermon on a Saturday or a Sunday where you don't perceive that day to be a religious day, and thus you can go and attend these things. Similarly, other people from other faiths will also do that with their families and their kids, and so their religious holiday will become more of a family day, and and a day to kind of uh, explain their religion to their child. So this way, like for example, if a Hindu was to take a holiday on a Monday because he prays to Shivji, then he'll be able to also take his child to the temple and educate him about Shivji and the right context of the religion and all those things. And at the same time, the family will know that this is a day when they all go to the temple. But when we don't do that, then essentially, you know, it just creates a certain kind of a disconnect in many aspects, like within the family, the person with the religion, the child with the religion, and all of those things. At the same time, what will happen is that the economy which sits around these places of worship, like the dargah and the temple, they will start getting far more customers, and we'll be able to dissipate money into the hands of the poor, uh, which I don't think happens very well right now, because the weekend is Saturday and Sunday and that's it. So not only that, people will obviously not just go to the temple, they will also go to the market, and because of this, the market will end up having a much longer weekend, because they'll be having customers on Sundays, which is probably the Christian community. They'll have customers on the Monday, they'll have customers on the Friday, and possibly on the Saturday, which might be the one day off that most people might choose to take. So at the same time, Hindus and Muslims actually regard Sunday as being the first day of the week, and they should be allowed to come in and work on the first day of the week, and then take a holiday for their day, their religious day. And what this will essentially do is probably boost productivity to quite an extent as well, because people are going to be managing things themselves. And Monday essentially is anyway supposed to be the day of the blues, and that's probably coming from the idea that Monday is the day of the moon, and because it's the day of the moon, we are probably a little more volatile emotionally, physiologically, and all of those things. So anyway, so I mean, these are a few of the things that are going to get affected. The other thing that will get affected is that the whole city will not be going to work at the same time, and the whole city will not be going to temples at the same time. So not only will you reduce congestion on the streets, with the traffic, you'll also be able to utilize your public resources a lot better, and your public resources will probably generate more revenue. And I don't know if I explained this earlier, but basically, the week defines the climate of the city. We need to understand this, that how we frame the week, how the week works, is essentially what defines the climate of the city. At the same time, there'll be other things which will end up getting affected, which is the deployment of security personnel for safety reasons, or for security of a particular of people going for a particular faith. These guys will, all the people who are going for their depending on the day of the week, you'll know where to send the security personnel, and thus your deployment will become far more efficient. You'll need far more people, and you won't need all the people at the same time in the same place, which is what happens when Sunday is the only day that one has to attend to, with regards to limited number of security personnel. So like this, there'll probably be multiple benefits that will come up from this process. The happiness index of the people is expected to go up, because then they'll have the ability to uh, you know transfer knowledge to their kid, and also be able to take a family day and be able to go to the market. So I think a lot more will happen, rather than people just lazing around on a Saturday or a Sunday and doing just random things and getting back to work. So like this, in fact, one of the things that I was going to say was that the the area around these places should be given some kind of protection from being flooded by manufactured goods, which is something that one could look at. So essentially, I'm just saying that all the uh, people don't need to go work on all the 5 days on all the same day on the same 5 days, and they all don't need to go shopping on the same 2 days. And by giving them a religious holiday, you will also meet the requirement of being a secular state. And at the same time, what will happen is you will um, essentially have a longer weekend for the retailers, who will then get far more consistent people coming to their shops. So I think these are about the advantages that I can think of right now. I think I had more, but some of them might be slipping my mind. But I think the idea is fairly clear that we need to shift toward the idea of a dynamic weekend. And yeah, so what I was saying was also that because now everything is pretty much done on email, most offices pretty much operate on emails. Uh, you know, it's not that if a person doesn't come into work, he will not be able to work. He can obviously attend to emails from the comfort of his house or something like that if there is anything urgent or important that comes up. So I don't think this will be such a big issue. But another thing that I expect to happen is that offices will also will also become more secular, in the sense that if they want to function on a particular day, then they'll have to make sure that they have the right mix of people in their office. Thus, you won't have to lecture people about secularism, they'll just have to deal with it themselves. So this is my advice. I hope Modi ji hears this advice, and I hope many governments of the world end up hearing this advice. And I hope it works well. I think it can be introduced as a basic idea for about 2-3 months, and see how offices manage themselves and see how things work. And once this starts to seem a little bit better, then maybe schools could have Monday as the day when they essentially focus more on physical activities and creative arts and all of those things. So Monday might be more suited for being like that kind of a day. And even offices, I feel, might want to experiment and see if instead of giving a holiday on a Monday, I mean, in meaning that keeping Monday as a holiday and keeping Sunday as a work day increases the productivity of their office, increases the productivity of their staff. Because if Monday is a difficult day for people to work on, then why don't you give Monday a holiday, as a standard? So, in fact, now that we speak of standards, this is the other thing, that the international standards are geared around Monday being the first day. However, for Hindus and Muslims, Sunday is the first day. And I think most Hindus would agree with the idea that the first day of the week should be spent working. And maybe even Muslims will want to follow that kind of an idea. So I don't know. I think this is something that until we don't implement it and find out what happens, we're not going to know. And I don't think you can introduce it as a law straight away. You will have to kind of inject it into the system as a guideline or a guidance for a little while, and then see how things work. Thank you.